Coming up on the other side, one of the irreplaceable parts of college football is these stadiums filled with fans and the passion and the pageantry and what that means for the sport itself. The new attendance numbers are out. Dennis Dodd's broken them down. They're very interesting as we continue to discuss the future of college football with CBSSports.com senior college football columnist Dennis Dodd. Next. So, Dennis, the slow or slower decline of attendance has been something that we have been tracking, but it seems that in 2021, the numbers across several different conferences and basically everywhere except for Arkansas, where Sam Pittman has been calling the hogs and they are packing that stadium out in Fayetteville. It does seem that we are continuing to see drops in attendance. I guess, first of all, what are some of the numbers that stood out to you as being particularly significant with this drop in attendance across the sport?
Well, in 2021, and let's start with the asterisk. Yes, COVID was a part of it. From the 20 season, the NCAA did not release attendance figures because of that. But getting back into the stadiums, concern over COVID has to be addressed. But what makes it a story is it's now been in decline nationally 7 years in a row, 9 out of the last 10. And in 2021, lowest average attendance in 40 years since 1981, to the point that the SEC led the country in attendance for the 23rd straight year, but its figure was the lowest since 1999, its average attendance. I think Conference USA and Mountain West may have had the lowest average attendance ever. And again, Mountain West started in 99, and I think Conference USA in 96. The only conferences up, I believe, are the Big Ten and the MAC, both in the Rust Belt. So figure that out. But
Sun Belt too.
Sun Belt as well. But it's down, and there's a myriad of factors why. And they even when you factor in COVID, there's still the factor of it's easier to sit at home, it's cheaper. Technology has now made it, you can watch multiple games on multiple TVs. The beer's fresh, it's free, all that stuff still applies. So it's a situation where ADs are kind of pulling their hair out. They don't know what to do.
I do think there's an element here where you have to be able to replicate some of those creature comforts of home in the stadium enough to approximate what you get at home. That way, the special experience of the in-stadium shines through. And like I would make an analogy to like national parks, right? You're not going to get Wi-Fi and hell, even much cell service national parks, but you really can't approximate like going to Yellowstone or going to the Grand Canyon just by watching it on your TV at home, because the enormity of it, just the physical, presence of it. But I mean, if you have a family and you want to take them to a game, almost any other event that you go to nowadays, they're going to have Wi-Fi. They're going to have decent cell service. And, like maybe my kids don't want to sit through 4 quarters of a game. Maybe my wife wants to be on Instagram, hitting up her friends in the third quarter. At a lot of stadiums, like including Florida State, who I was with as a fan last year, went to a game. You can't do that. The cell service sucks. They don't have Wi-Fi there yet. And I think increasingly you're going to see people not go to games if they can't just get the communications part of that correct. Additionally, like even if you don't have an issue of, I want to bring my family to this, to the game, and like maybe my kid wants to be on his tablet for half, right? Like for me, that's fine, because it means I get to go to the game as opposed to getting a no from my wife, right? So, okay, screen time, whatever. I still want those creature comforts there. Dan, I mean, you know all about that too. So the other thing I think is, think about back to when we were students, right? It used to be, hey, we're going to go to Ken's after the game. That's the thing, because we didn't have cell service in Doak Campbell, right? And like, we had a brick phone anyway, so playing Snake on it. And Danny, you guys didn't have cell phones when you went to school. Like, it's not an old joke, but like nowadays, kids communicate constantly throughout the game. It's an issue that they'll leave the game for if they can't Snapchat each other back and forth and make plans during the game about where they're going to go. So I don't know. I think a big part of this is these stadiums are behind on letting people communicate and consume the way that they do at other venues. And it's not an irreplaceable product. It is a product that is fine to watch on TV.
They're behind, but they've gotten better. You telling me about a Power 5 program like Florida State not wired this day and age is surprising. I remember a few years ago visiting the University of Washington, where they made a big point to tell me, like, they were doing upgrades on the stadium. They had like these cell towers. They looked like robots at each corner of the stadium to make sure the stadium was wired. And this is in Seattle. This is one of the biggest technology cities in the world. I thought all schools were wired. I mean, they have to be these days, Bud. You know that. I go back to the story of a few years ago when Michigan State, Iowa was playing at Michigan State. And the student section, it started to rain a little bit. It was drizzling. And the student section emptied out at Michigan State in the middle of a good game. And somebody asked what happened. And the answer came back, well, their phones got wet. They went to the bars. They can't communicate. And it's a little thing like that, but a big thing that keeps people away. You've got to be not only wired, but really wired. I mean, it's surprising to me that the country is not fully wired for broadband. So when we get into this discussion about, well, is Apple or Netflix going to jump into rights fees? That's one big reason why they haven't. When you can't get your product to the entire country, that's a problem. And when you can't wire a stadium, you're just asking people to stay away because you're asking them to be offline with friends, with babysitters, with husbands, with wives, with friends, being able to post stuff.
Sports books?
Sports books, absolutely. Although I will say this, and this is a different attack on that. I ask about the gambling portion of this, and let's assume you're wired. And you're betting on your phone. That doesn't necessarily, I'm told that doesn't necessarily keep you from not going to the game. It doesn't necessarily keep you from going to the game. In other words, you're betting. Either way, it's not an inducement to go to a game. And especially in this day and age of micro betting, where you guys know this is coming, where you can bet run pass, you can bet on props at the end of a quarter. That's all coming, and that's going to be huge.
Sorry, Dave.
Go ahead, bud.
Well, on that point about the betting thing and the time of game and tying that all together with attendance, I almost wonder if you really wanted to juice the product and tie this thing into betting hardcore, which they won't do this, but
they won't.
Just make it a mandatory 15 seconds between plays. Like, you could not snap the ball 15 seconds after the last one. It's a consistent thing. And that way, like, you could load up the what's the next play, run pass, like, result of next play type thing. They would really play, and you could run 15-second micro advertisements between each play, split screen that thing.
That sounds like hellscape to me.
The technology is there. I'll tell you. Yeah. Last fall, my friend Chris Bevilacqua, who's one of the sharpest TV consultants in the industry, he created CSTV, which is now CBS Sports Network. Went all in on this company called Simple Bet. And what it is basically the technology to be able to do that. Don't ask me to explain how when you have buffering, issues, but this is supposed to be that platform that allows it, to makes it equal.
Is it too dramatic to say it's just not going to reverse? Like, I look at all the issues that are there, and if I was from the university side or the, that's how I would be like, man, I'd be trying to downside my stadium, or downsize attend, like in this era of expansion, putting in more, because I mean, you get a pretty good pulse through social media. It's expensive. Like, that's the one thing I always get is it's really expensive. It's more than ever to go to the game. Ticket prices, the hotels are jacked up. The flights are jacked up, and, college towns aren't exactly easy to get to. And then the oversaturation of TV options. Like, I know for me, when I when I was calling games and I had to be there, so that was the closest I got to being a fan. You had to be there a couple hours before to prep, so you're there earlier tailgating. So if I called a 3:30 game, I'd miss a lot of the 12 noon games. That maybe there were some good ones. I'd want to see a Big Ten showdown. Then I call mine. It's the only game that I see. Then after I'm traveling home, it's like I kind of missed that one, so I get home at halftime. And now, if you sit at home, you can have your game on the main screen. You can watch every game all day long, which diehard college football fans really want to do. So I look at this trend and I think, yeah, it's concerning and it's alarming, but I don't know if there's a way to reverse it, despite all the great ideas and bells and whistles and wireless, and you could have screen. Like, I just don't know. I'm like shrugging my arm saying, or shrugging my shoulders saying, I don't know what to do. And I don't know if there is a solution.
Yeah, I don't know either. On the stadium issue, it's easy in the, not easy, but easier in the pros, because they want a new stadium. They go lobby the city or the state and, build one from the studs up. You can't do that on campus and build a boutique stadium that fits demand at that time. You're in general, bordered in or held in by a footprint of the college. There aren't places you can just go build a new stadium. And you're right. These days, if ADs had their ways, they'd build smaller stadiums, as some of the pros have, and create a demand for a premium ticket. Then you can build in those amenities where you feel you are more like home. The colleges are trying to do it now with club seating and club bar areas that, helps to get there. At Texas, they have taken that San Jacinto Boulevard, which is the main street that runs past DKR Memorial Stadium, and created into a game day experience, which should have been done years ago at Texas, considering how bad the football is. But it keeps people engaged, gets them in there. And look, all of it at the end of the day sometimes is a function of winning. But what I've been told by marketers time and time again, boy, if you base what you're doing on winning, you're in trouble, because there's no guarantee. You can't.
Wasn't Georgia down this year? Wasn't their attendance
Georgia
down?
was down. Georgia was down 71 per game, so that was negligible. Sanford Stadium was sold out basically every game, and I can't explain why the 71. So I just kind of throw that out. Yes, Georgia was Georgia; they filled the stadium, but Alabama was down. Texas was down. The reason Arkansas was up is because they were very successful. 2 years before, they were 2-10, and this year in 2021 they beat Texas for the first time in Fayetteville in 40 years. And if you want to buy a stock, buy Arkansas stock coming up, because this year in 22 they got Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, and Bobby Petrino coming in with Missouri State. So a lot of it, again, is a function of who is on your schedule. But that doesn't explain Rutgers being right there, too. I think they were up 15,000 per game. I think they had Michigan at home. Michigan has alumni all over the place. But Rutgers, in a slightly improved season, was way, way up.
And Texas and Alabama are two schools who, if I'm correct, recently added seats to their stadium.
Yes,
yeah,
they did. Alabama's gone over 100, yes.
Yeah, I'm with you, Danny, on the idea of downsizing stadiums, because I think that just as far as, like Dennis, you said, as far as creating demand for the product, that helps, because there are fewer tickets available. Pretty simple, supply and demand. But I also think for television wise, I think it just presents a better atmosphere and a better product to see. Because like, even if you have a stadium that's got 70,000 capacity, and say you've got 50,000 people there, which is above the national average from what most schools are getting, that's still 20,000 empty seats you're seeing on television every game. And it kind of just makes you think, oh, these people don't care. Why should I?
My unrealistic, way too expensive stadium plan is less seats, cushions on every seat, and just like an airplane, a TV screen on the back of the headrest in front of you, so that you can click around and watch other games. Again, it seems way too expensive, but if you really want to create the at-home environment in the stadium, make the seats more comfortable, allow a second screen option beyond even what's on their phone, something that's built in and doesn't rely on cell service, and just understand that maybe their eyes won't be on the field for every single play.
Yeah, and kind of look at what like movie theaters were doing even before the pandemic. As less people were going to movies, it's like, just like you said, Chip, we went from like little theater seats to more like recliners in all these movie theaters, where you just showed up, you could just sprawl out, you can lean back and chill for 2 hours.
You're seeing this consideration in real time at the University of Miami, where a big booster there named John Ruiz, he's a billionaire guy there, that is proposing building sort of either on campus for the University of Miami or somewhere close in Coral Gables, and much smaller than Hard Rock Stadium, say a 45,000 seat stadium, which really fits the demand for the University of Miami. And again, if you did that, you could charge premium prices, because there are 45,000 people that follow the University of Miami who would pay that. That's what your market research would show. But he's running into a lot. The footprint of the University of Miami, there's absolutely no room for something like that. He wanted to build a new stadium, I think, across the street from Coral Gables High. That went.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for sure.
No. but it's something they're considering and they want to do, and it's kind of come in this wave of Mario Cristobal coming in. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, I don't think it's unrealistic that we go to more premium seating, right? It's hard to get people to, depending on how far away you are from certain metropolitan areas, right? Like Austin can support expansion. Tuscaloosa is not a big town, but it's what, 45 or 50 minutes from Birmingham. A&M is, how close is that to Houston? I mean, it's under an hour.
Hour and a half or so. Yeah.
Is it an hour and a half? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Houston's such a big area. That's still like that's a day trip, right? You can do that 7 times a year. Other stadiums are not that close to major metropolitan areas, and you can't pull that off. I think for those, go into more like the experiential type process, making it, hey, come to 2 or 3 games a year, premium product. I think for those stadiums, it makes more sense.
Are they going to look to build a Miami's new stadium out there by that little private jet airport near the office in Fort Lauderdale?
Where they got the soccer stadium?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah, that's across the street from the office, guys.
Yes,
You know that.
exactly. I was watching a match there on Saturday. Like I know exactly where I've eaten at a restaurant right behind those bleachers.
Yeah, they got that little fancy.
Wait, that bar?
Quick story. That's where Michigan practiced for the Orange Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I was driving around one day and didn't know that. I want to see the soccer stadium. I'm a stadium guy. I just like to see venues. And I'm driving around right there, and I see their equipment truck, and I go, "Holy cow, Michigan's practicing!" And I kind of slow down and make a circle in the parking lot to see what's going on. And I immediately get set upon by security. And I roll down the window, and he goes, "You can't be here." I go, "I know, I'm leaving." It's like, God forbid that some slappy see a play from Michigan's expansive playbook.
Did Nakobe Dean sneak by security? Like, did you distract security while he slept in there? Because he was calling out their plays in the Orange Bowl.
I had Dan Lanning ducking down in a seat behind me. So.